Hi, this is Toby Guggenheimer, former Dean of SOFA. And after all we've been through individually, collectively, it's really great to address my favorite design student community again. I'm actually speaking to you from Guam, my current home, a place that I moved to just about a month ago. I did so primarily because of work opportunities. As it turned out, just before COVID, I designed the headquarters of Asian Development Bank over in Micronesia. And then during COVID, we did the same thing for Asian Development Bank over in the Marshall Islands. So now that we're heading into construction, I'm a little bit better positioned here, where I'm very much closer to those remote locations than I was in Manila. Even though there's still a lot of ocean between us here and those locations. Anyway, during the past year, we've all had an opportunity to learn from the experience of disruption. We had to ask ourselves every day, how can we overcome this hardship that seemed to just fall from the sky? What are the clues that we should look forward to help us track forward, both as designers and individuals? Can we see beyond the limitations of the specific moment that we've been living through? Is there a light at the end of this particular tunnel? Sure, everyone has different abilities to cope with disruption, but what I'd like to remind you of, and this is really important for all of my friends in the industry, that we, of all the people in the world, are among those who are trained to transcend whatever difficulties we face in a given moment. Because we really focus on our imaginative capabilities, we have to also position ourselves now to help others imagine a new world of opportunities. Now, certainly in most of our lives, the horrible events of the last year have been unprecedented. And it's easy to, I guess, collectively feel sorry for ourselves, but take a longer view of history. Think about the suffering of your grandparents and the horrors that they had to endure during the most unwelcome calamity of World War II, a period where every sort of cruelty and deprivation visited your country, of course, much of the rest of the world. If you do that, or other momentous events in history, you can see that the setbacks that we recently suffered are, in actuality, somewhat modest. And in any case, individuals and nations and the entirety of humanity are continuously presented with challenges that we have to work as hard as we can to overcome. Societies often fail to anticipate the origin of threats. Where are they going to come from? What is tomorrow going to bring? We're conditioned, I suppose, to assume that tomorrow's threats will look very much like those we faced yesterday. But even by that measure, I have to admit, humanity failed pretty miserably around this time. Having said that, the good news is, as you know, that we're living within the greatest scientific revolution in the history of our species, when medical innovations and scientific knowledge come at us fast and furious. So while we wouldn't have anticipated that a global threat to humanity would have come from a tiny little germ, I guess also wouldn't have thought that unique and original types of vaccines and other responses could emerge so quickly. So definitely an upside to the situation. But in a certain extent, mankind's response to COVID, or even the fact that we became victimized by COVID in the first place, I think from a designer's point of view, can aptly be described as a failure of imagination. And for us, that's particularly troubling because that is what we are particularly adept at. But I think it's not too early to be optimistic. Sure, we've suffered losses. Many of your families, my own family. Unfortunately, we're in that situation. And we do have to take time to remember those who suffered, to grieve those who did not survive the pandemic. But by the same token, we also have obligations to ourselves, to our families, to future generations. We have to continue building for the future which, by virtue of recent events, may have arrived a little bit earlier than we anticipated. So while we lick our wounds, we have to simultaneously find the energy to imagine an even better world moving forward than the one we inhabited before COVID struck us. And in fact, we may actually be better off, particularly the Philippine design community, in that working through COVID has actualized behaviors that under normal circumstances would only have become typical many years from now. So we all know that we're living in a kind of a hybridized future already, where many activities happen virtually, and that can really help us. Think about it. You are now living in a world where consumers of products, consumers of services like designs, are very comfortable dealing with people over the internet. And so it's my sense that you can now credibly market yourself beyond the borders that in the past have limited your reach. And certainly that's been my approach and my method for a long time. I base myself in the Philippines not just because I love the culture and of course to be with my Filipino family, but also it was a great place from which to look over the horizon and to sell my architecture, my architectural, interior design, and industrial skills around the globe. So I think anyone can do that. You know, we can place a box around the experiences that we suffered, and then I think we can, you know, imagine opportunities that present themselves now that didn't exist, at least not to the same extent before. So let's be grateful that we are here to talk to each other. Let's be confident that as designers, we have the skills, the perspectives that will help us move beyond mere survival. And let's be confident that we can thrive by virtue of those very, very special skills that you have been privileged to gain through your education and through your evolving experiences as a designer. So I wish you well. I hope to hear from you. So please don't hesitate to drop me a note, let me know how you're doing. And especially remember that I'll always be available to exchange ideas about design, to talk about life, and about the intersection of those two. So congratulations again for being in a position to move forward and to do great things.